Dragoons, attack! Cut! Stand up, easy. Stand easy.
Liberation of Leeuwarden. In early April 1945, the first Canadian Army was advancing north from Holland against the resistance. The Germans fought stubbornly, knowing that defeat was only a matter of time. Their extinguished east were blocked by the 4th Canadian and the 1st Polish Army Divisions. Having no other alternative, the Germans fell back on the North Sea. But here, the retreat was hampered by Allied airborne troops who dropped in enemy lines and seized bridges, ferries, and airfields. The Royal Canadian Dragoons were involved in the wide circling movements. They had deep enemy positions and guarded the lines of the 2nd Division. On 11 April, the hard-fought breakthrough of German lines was achieved. There was no opportunity for a rest. At Leeuwarden, each squadron forced the bridgehead over the Pointe Canal during a bitter 5-hour struggle. They were joined by B Squadron, and fought a series of sharp local actions, capturing stores, equipment, and prisoners. Actions of nature continued for the next 3 days. During the night of 14-15 April, word was received of bitter fighting in Leeuwarden between the Dutch resistance forces and the German garrison. Immediately, C Squadron and HQ Squadron set out to reinforce the Dutch patriots. They entered the city at 11 a.m. in the fine rural rain and found the streets deserted, except for groups of armed Dutchmen. The Dutch and Germans were still exchanging fire with the rooftops, but with the approach of the staghounds and mingles of the Dragoons, the Germans withdrew hastily. Cheering crowds soon filled the streets, national flags were flown, and the Dutch embraced the Canadians. The Dragoons, cheered and celebrated by the citizens, turned over the supplies and foodstuffs of the German occupied garrison. The HQ Squadron remained in Leeuwarden, and the C Squadron moved to the east to assist D Squadron in the Battle of Groningen. Since that day, every April 15th, the town of Leeuwarden flies the camp flag of the Royal Canadian Dragoons. As well, the Royal Canadian Dragoons, wherever we deployed internationally, fly the flag of the city of Leeuwarden. Please rise for the playing of the national anthem of the Netherlands.
Dragoons, attention! Present arms! Stand easy.
The commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Merwa, will now just parade.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, members of the Dutch Embassy, the Vanderker family, Trooper Don White and his family, all of our friends, our families, and Dragoons. Today, as we have done for so many decades, we gather as a regimental family to remember and to celebrate the bond that was formed between Dragoons and the people of the Netherlands so long ago. It was 74 years ago when Canadians marched through Northwest Europe, driving the remaining enemy from the towns and countryside, repelling the last efforts of the Nazi regime to hold on to the Netherlands. As you have heard, it was on April 15th, 1945, when the Royal Canadian Dragoons liberated the town of Leeuwarden. freeing the people from the presence of the enemy. Since that time, we celebrate together, honoring each other by hoisting our respective flags and remembering the bravery and the sacrifice that took place over the many years of conflict that preceded that happy day. And in our midst, we have living history. Trooper Don White will speak shortly, and who honors us with his dedication to helping us remember his actions and those of his fellow Dragoons as they courageously march forward. We also have members of the Vandeker family, who represent those in their family who were liberated by Canadians in Harlingen, only a few miles away from Leeuwarden. Along with the ambassador, they remind us of the friendship that was formed between the Dragoons and the Dutch people, and they honor those ties with their presence here today. You are always welcome here, and you are a part of our regimental family. The history of those ties are so important to us in the Royal Canadian Dragoons. For the modern serving members of the regiment, understanding where we come from is to have insight into what the future holds. A squadron of staghound armored cars liberating the people of the Netherlands while facing an enemy that is volatile, unpredictable, and dangerous is not far from our current operations environment. Our soldiers deploy to places around the world where the local population is threatened with harm. And through the professionalism, dedication, and courage of our Dragoons, those threats are diminished. We train to fight the next war, but by looking into our history, we try to understand how to succeed by reflecting on how we won in our past. We remember our history through events like today, with parades and speeches, and with special guests like Don White, John, Norma, and Kelly Vandeker, and the ambassador. But we also remember by restoring our history, as we are in the process of doing with our Staghound armored car, that is the pride of our regiment's historical vehicle troop. It is in the process of full restoration with the help of our friends Matt Rutledge and the rest of the Ontario Regiment Museum in Oshawa. Once this vehicle is restored, it will be housed in our regimental lines and will be a part of our living regimental history. It is a Staghound that Don White drove to liberate the town of Leeuwarden, and it is a model of a Staghound that adorns the newly created Trooper Don White Regimental Right of Line Trophy. This trophy is presented to the squadron who demonstrated the most skill in each of the Right of Line competitions, and will be presented every year in April at our Leeuwarden celebrations to continue to remind us of our connection to our history while we train and fight today. Next year, as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the liberation, we continue to strengthen our relationship with the people of Leeuwarden, with events in Canada and in the Netherlands, and planning is ongoing for these events. But I am certain that no matter where Dragoons are deployed, or whether they are serving in Petawawa, across Canada, or around the world, that we will remember and honor our history, those who have gone before us, and the incredible friendship that we have with the people of the Netherlands, past and present. Thank you, Your Excellency, for coming to Petawawa to help us celebrate. And I look forward to continuing to remember with you and your country our shared history.
We would now like to ask His Excellency to say a few words to the regiment.
Brigadier General Peter Atkinson, Lieutenant Colonel Rob Marois, Trooper Veteran Mr. Don White, distinguished guests, members of the Royal Canadian Dragoons. I am deeply honoured to stand with you here today in celebration of the liberation of the city of Leeuwarden, the capital of Friesland, a province in the northern part of the Netherlands. Since 1883, the Royal Canadian Dragoons have served Canada with pride and distinction, although I have been told that the heroic tradition of the regiment can even be traced back as early as 1759 in Quebec. During World War II, the Royal Canadian Dragoons served in Sicily in 1943 and Italy in 1944, before moving upwards towards Northwest Europe in January 1945. It is in April that year that the Royal Canadian Dragoons liberated the city of Leeuwarden. Next year, it will mark the 75th anniversary, and we look forward to honouring the tremendous courage, sacrifices and achievements of the brave Canadian men and women who risked so much to end both the occupation of Leeuwarden, the Netherlands, and that of Western Europe as a whole. Last October, during the visit of the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Mark Rutte, I had the distinct privilege of meeting a World War II veteran from the Royal Canadian Dragoons, and I am pleased and honoured to see him here again today, Mr. Don White. At barely 20 years of age, you were one of the Canadian heroes on the ground back in 1945, and we were fortunate enough to have you present when Prime Minister Rutte addressed Canada's Parliament last year. He specifically mentioned you in his address to Parliament and noted with gratitude how you and your comrades risked your lives so that the people of the Netherlands could be free. For this, we are forever grateful. Again, thank you. Today, Mr. Don White, I am honoured to share with your regiment that the office of the Prime Minister Mark Rutte has informed me last week that the Prime Minister has decided to name a beautiful white tulip, the Don White, in honour of your contribution and that of your comrades of the Royal Canadian Dragoons in liberating the city of Leeuwarden. This tulip will be formally inaugurated on April 17th at the Keukenhof in the Netherlands by the Prime Minister Mark Rutte himself. The city of Leeuwarden, as you may know, has a special place in my heart. It was there, in the house of my grandparents, that I was born in 1956. And I remember my mother telling me the stories of the liberation by the Canadian forces in 1945. She was at that time 13 years of age. And the fact that after 5 years of Nazi occupation, she was treated to chewing gum and chocolates by the liberators, she had tears in her eyes. More than 7,600 Canadian servicemen paid the highest price so that we, the people of the Netherlands, have been able to live in freedom, enjoy the civil liberties that we know today, and have the privilege of living in peace and security ever since. We honour their sacrifice up to this very day. Whenever you have the chance to go to the Netherlands and attend the remembrance ceremonies at the Canadian War Cemeteries on May 4th, you will see that this remembrance is passed on from one generation to another. And on a different note, those of you that have participated in the traditional Nijmegen 4 days marches will have seen that wherever the Canadian contingent marches, it is greeted with cheers and flowers. In 2020, we will be celebrating the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the Netherlands and, of course, of the city of Leeuwarden. It gives me great pleasure to hand to you, Lieutenant Colonel Rob Marois, on behalf of the Mayor of the city of Leeuwarden and the Governor of the province of Friesland, this official invitation for the Royal Canadian Dragoons to attend the liberation on April 15, 2020 in Leeuwarden. It would be indeed a great honour for the city of Leeuwarden to have you in their midst once again. Thank you so much for having me, and with that I will hand back to Lieutenant Avery Burke and look forward to joining in the celebrations today. Thank you very much.
Mr. Don White will now address the parade.
I feel so grateful to be here and so honored to be amongst us wonderful people here and so many of the Dutch people to help me celebrate this great day. The account of us coming into Leeuwarden in the morning, April the 15th, was pretty accurate as far as I remember. In the afternoon, there was a baby girl born in Leeuwarden, and they named her Jenny. Her father wrote a letter to the colonel of our regiment, Leeuwarden, thanking him that his daughter was able to be born a free person. And I think without that letter, maybe we would not be here today celebrating the way we're celebrating. And then I'm going to now take a little time to tell you what else happened that day. The headquarters came in and secured the town of Leeuwarden. Number 1 troop was sent on our way and do our duty for the rest of the day. Our objective was the town of Harlington on the coast. Halfway between there is the town of Franeker. After we left Leeuwarden and got close to Franeker, we were temporarily stopped by a German machine gun nest on the right-hand side of the road in a group of farm buildings. After we dealt with that, when we had approached the town of Franeker, the bridge was damaged over the canal and we couldn't get in. So the Dutch Underground said that they would be able to repair that bridge, and so we waited. In about less than an hour, we proceeded over the bridge into the town of Franeker, where we were greeted in the very same way as we were in the town of Leeuwarden. Well, after inching our way through the hundreds of people that were out to thank us, we started out for Harlington. But we didn't get very far out of Harlington, and all hell broke loose, and we had to throw our smoke out and retreat back in. The orders came through, we were to stay there till relief came up. Just before sundown, a Canadian infantry regiment came in and relieved us, and we retreated back into Leeuwarden, where we harbored for the night. 70 years later, I was back in Leeuwarden celebrating the liberation. The people of Leeuwarden gave us a concert on the 5th in the big square in the middle of town. And as they brought each one of us back, there were 18 veterans there. As they brought us into the concert, they flashed a picture of us on 2 big jumbotrons each side of the stage. And the picture was one we had to submit before we left, like we looked 70 years ago. After the parade, one of the guides told me there was a gentleman in the audience that wanted to meet me, so I told him to bring him over. He came over and we talked, and he asked me if I remembered a town called Franeker. And I said, yes, I did. But he said, I was a 10-year-old boy. I lived 2 houses down from where that bridge was. I went over and I talked to you, and you gave me some chocolate. So today, I think about that and how the Dutch people remember that from like that age and how they passed it down from generation to generation. We in Canada, I don't think have ever really thought about that much, because the people of Canada never suffered the way the people of the Netherlands did. And so it really, really pleases me that this regiment is able to do what we're doing today by raising the town of the flag of Leeuwarden and playing their national anthem. And I think that just gives me a good feeling that we're reflecting back on them and honoring them on the sacrifice they made from the Germans that we did. I thank everybody for being here today. I'm so pleased to be here. God bless everyone and keep you safe. And it's a great day to be a Dragoon.